Good evening. World War II, known at the time as the Great War, officially ended when the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28th, 1919, in a palace outside of the town of Versailles, France. However, the fighting actually ceased 7 months earlier when an armistice or a temporary cessation of hostilities between the Allied nations and Germany went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For this reason, November 11th, 1918 is generally regarded as the end of the war to end all wars. In November 1919, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day. The first celebration using the term Veterans Day occurred in Birmingham, Alabama in 1947 when a World War II veteran named Raymond Weeks organized the National Veterans Day celebration. It included a parade and other activities to honor all veterans. The event was held on November 11th, which was then designated Armistice Day. However, later, U.S. Representative Edward Reese of Kansas proposed a bill that would change Armistice Day to Veterans Day. In 1954, Congress passed a bill that was signed by President Dwight Eisenhower, proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day. In 1968, a law was passed which changed the national commemoration of Veterans Day to the fourth Monday in October. However, when it became apparent that November 11th was a date of historical significance to many Americans, in 1978, Congress returned the observance to its traditional date. Good evening. My name is Langston Clay, and I'm an investigator with the Prince George's County Human Relations Commission, and I'm also a veteran of the United States Navy. In honor of Veterans Day, the Prince George's County Human Relations Commission, in partnership with the Prince George's County Office of Veteran Affairs and the Prince George's County Memorial Library System, welcomes you to join us as we celebrate and recognize the unselfish service of veterans and their sacrifices, as well as those of their families who supported them during their service to our nation. We're honored to be joined by three distinguished guests this evening. Dr. Renee Allen. Dr. Allen is a retired petty officer with the United States Navy. Dr. Allen served in the Grenada invasion, Operation Desert Shield, and Operation Desert Storm. She is currently the host of Renee Allen and Friends show and co-host of the Chris Thomas Show with Dr. Renee Allen. She's also a media correspondent for Sister to Sister 2.0 with Jamie Foster Brown, and she was featured in the second edition of Who's Who in Black Washington as one of the women of excellence. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Allen.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Allen. How are you today?
I am so great. How are you?
Great, great. Thank you for joining us. What I want to do is I want to just ask you, we want to focus on diversity issues this evening. And what I want to do is I want to start out by asking you first and foremost, what motivated you to pursue a career in the military?
Wow. Well, first of all, Langston Clay, thank you for your service. And thank you and the sponsors, and of course, Prince George's County Human Relations Commission for having this platform to bring a bird's eye view, at least a bird's eye view to the public about our elite veterans. I was actually in high school, very popular in the actress acting and singing and gong shows, and I'm really telling my age now. And my grades were average, a few this, a few that, so I wasn't really up for any scholarships at the time. So when we had a career day and the military uniform services came in, all of them, and I said, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I love the Navy's uniform and the way that they presented themselves. And so that's why I went with the Navy. But I was all ready to go to New York and start my singing outside of my repertory theater and all this stuff. But when they came into high school, I said, well, this looks like a great career. So I went in and I never looked back. And I'm so glad I had that opportunity to serve our country.
Very good. Okay, now, obviously going into the military is a big decision. It's an exciting decision. And we know that there are certain risks of peril. For example, the possibility of going into combat or just some type of hazardous duty. But let me ask you, did you ever consider any of the issues that you may have faced because of your gender, because you're a woman?
Oh, absolutely. I retired in 2004. So we're talking about the 79 I went in. And so even today we have a lot of the gender, sexist and all kinds of problems. But at that point, women weren't really, in my opinion, taken seriously. We had to work extra hard just to get the respect that I feel that we deserved.
Right.
Uh, and it was a hard battle, but as long as you just worked hard and passed your exams and did your PRT and kept everything leveled, you did pretty good. I mean, I always kept focused on what I wanted, and I was always involved on the front line and the admiral's office and went to the committees, and so I always kept myself drenched in everything so I would feel part of the military.
Okay. Now, you were a non-commissioned officer, petty officer.
Yes.
As you ascended up the ladder as a petty officer, did you encounter any particular resistance or, let's say, any type of discrimination, as you pursued, rank?
Yes. Why? Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Like I made E6. I was E7 board eligible 4 times, but
Okay.
I had no C time except for Roosevelt Road, Puerto Rico during Grenada. And so I was always passed over. But yes, you were treated differently. I had a lot of, and I'll just be very candid with you, Langston, it was a white male's world. And so all of the chiefs, that there was, well, I won't, there was a lot of nicknames for our chiefs at the time.
I
But
know.
all if you had done a Westpac or something like that, past the equator, you weren't making chief. So
Right. All right. Okay. Now, so going back to this, did you find it difficult to complain, or what process did you use to address those issues with, let's say, the command staff? Was there a complaint process? I'm sure there was a complaint process, but was that process difficult for you to use?
I never used it, although I probably should have several times.
Okay.
However, I worked for Admiral Schaefer at my last duty station, active duty at Bethesda Naval Hospital, which is now Walter Reed Medical Center. And I was on the Me Too unit, which was affiliate with the Mayo Clinic. When the presidents came in, I worked with President Reagan and Bush Sr. So being the only Black female on that team, being the only petty officer on that team until a little bit later, there was a lot of things I experienced. And, one thing I have to say, our Black men are still having a rough time. And I never really understood. I think it's the insecurities, and they're so brilliant and so strong and so beautiful that I just think, people just have an issue with that. But at the time, I remember talking to Admiral Schaefer because I had an open door kind of policy because I drove for him sometimes to Walter Reed on Georgia Avenue. So we had a lot of conversations. And at the time, I think I was an E4.
Okay.
And I asked him, I said, why is it that the Black male for the same issue was getting more like the rank taken off, more, money taken off? Why were they having a harsher penalty than the white men? And he really denied it as though he wasn't, but I saw it because I worked with the JAG, I worked with the Admiral's office. So I had I was in everything. So I knew that there was a huge problem. I did address it with him, but they were in denial, just denial.
Right. Okay. All right. Now, so looking back, let's say near the end of your enlistment, or even or the end of your career, or even after your career,
Yeah.
What is your opinion at this stage? Do you believe that that the military has made progress? I mean, we know that society period is still struggling with diversity issues.
Mhm.
And the military, with this culture and with its traditions, we know coping with those issues may be a little more of a challenge. But looking back, do you believe that progress has been made?
I believe progress has been made, Langston. Unfortunately, we made a lot of progress for 8 years, and the last 4 years we went backwards. With disgracing our veterans. This I don't know if it's present or almost past administration. Disrespecting Senator McCain and Congressman Cummings and Congressman Lewis, people who have paved the way and dedicated their lives to humanity and just so many things. And so, yes, we're making progress, but when we allow people who do not have the best interests of democracy and diversity as our administration with the Trump administration, if I may say so, then we go backwards a step. So I'm so glad that we now have, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris now leading the way.
Okay. And Leslie, let me ask you this. Looking at your military career, how did your career, your experiences during your career impact your decisions to move on, or at least impact your transition from military life into civilian life?
It had a lot to do. I mean, I have a Jamaican father, Cuban, Indian, white and black mom. I had a very strict household. So the military was an extension of that. I showed up at boot camp. There were 4 people in my holding. So I woke up the next morning and the company commander threw me off the mattress because I thought it was my mom saying, "Mom, give me a few more minutes to sleep." That kind of thing.
Yeah. I know the feeling. I've experienced that.
Yeah, but the transition has been great. I mean, you learn leadership, you learn chain of command, you learn how to respect your fellow person. The camaraderie is just so breathtaking, and I just wish we had more of that out here in civilian life. I came into the civilian life and I didn't see that in corporate America or the government that much, and so it saddened me.
All right, great. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Dr. Allen. I'm sure you're going to stick around with us, right? We'll certainly.
Thank you. If you'd like me to, I will.
All right, great. All right. Now we'd like to. I'd like to introduce.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Veronica Harris. She's a retired Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force. And I'd like to introduce Dr. James Dula, retired Major, United States Air Force. And if you notice, I took the Navy person first. Sorry. But Mrs. Harris, Lieutenant Colonel, we will say Colonel Harris. Colonel Harris is enlisted in the United States Air Force as a law enforcement specialist, and she later earned her officer commission through a U.S. Air Force ROTC program at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Colonel Harris served in Kuwait in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and was later hand-selected by the Obama administration to a key position in the White House Communications Agency. Colonel Harris is currently, again, retired, and she has a company by the name of Vector Check, which assists veterans in their transition to military life. She's a life coach, and she's also the current manager of the Fisher House at Joint Base Andrews. So I'd like to introduce, I'd like to welcome you, Colonel Harris.
Great, glad to be here.
Hey, great.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for being with us today. Again, what I want to do is I want to ask you some of the same questions, general questions, but I want to, and if I can, just ask this: what convinced you to go into the military?
Well, first of all, like Dr. Allen, thanks so much for the opportunity to have a voice in this awesome program, this awesome event to highlight veterans and just to say thank you to all of those out there that have served and are serving right now. So just want to put that out there and just say thank you so much for the opportunity to be a voice in this event. What drove me to join the military? Well, I had gone to school, actually. I had already gone to college, and I considered myself, out there. I was working a part-time job, and had already graduated college and wasn't getting many opportunities through with my degree. And so I said, well, if I hadn't gone to school, what would I have done? And I probably would have joined the military. Okay. And I went down the list of the different branches and said, okay, Army, they get a little dirty. I'm not the dirty, that ain't my thing. Marines, I'm not hoorah, a fighting type of girl. And Navy, I don't like the water that much as far as other than just by the beach and bathing. So, I have to be an Air Force girl because I'm more laid back, and so Air Force was just my pick, just going down the line of what branch's mission was. So,
all right, great.
On the Air Force.
Okay, now you had success in becoming a commissioned officer, which is definitely a huge accomplishment, and I'd like to know. As an officer, and particularly a Black female officer, I know you got pushback. I know it. And I was wondering if you could just tell us about maybe one particular incident that or a situation which maybe you were pushed back on, but that motivated you even more. Does that make sense?
Well, I have several of those, but one that stood out to me in particular, my first assignment as a lieutenant, I was assigned to a program because I was an acquisition officer, and that meant that I managed government programs. And so I had, as Dr. Allen mentioned, some older gentlemen that I don't think we're particularly happy about having a young Black female manage them. And so there were times where I would need information, request information, because a lot of times when you're managing something, you're not expected to be the expert on all things that you're managing, but you need to have a top level understanding of what it is that you're managing. And so those things, I needed their input, their expertise.
Right.
I found it difficult to get feedback from them, and it was quite obvious that they had issues with being, led by someone that was, an African American, and a lot of things that they did. As I grew up the ranks, one incident that I will never forget was I was waiting for an appointment, and the receptionist at the hospital had my ID card. And by this time I had made Lieutenant Colonel. And the person was calling my name and had my ID card in her hand and was looking directly at me. It was saying, well, is Lieutenant Colonel Harris here? Lieutenant Colonel Harris here. And I'm sitting directly in front of her. And she was looking past me as if she didn't know I was the person whose card that she had. And I was like, what in the world is wrong? And so it was always incidents like that, or if I was, that really blew me away. And I approached her and I was like, do you not understand that I'm the person that you're looking for? You have my ID card in your hand. What is the issue?
Right.
I would have people that would not want to salute, would go the other way. If I was coming in their direction, instead of wanting to exercise that protocol, they would go, opposite direction, or would act as if they didn't know what to do with some of the protocols that you're taught automatically when you come in. What you're doing when an officer either approaches you or is in the room, there are certain things you're supposed to do. All of a sudden, people get amnesia as if they didn't know what to do. And so it was a lot of that going on. I'm sure many African-American officers that probably face that.
Right. And I mean, and as again, as an officer, did you ever have to investigate any issues of harassment? Maybe the female airmen at all? Did you ever have to investigate any, or did you actually witness any situations such as that?
I can honestly say I did not. I
Okay.
never had that as something I had to investigate, or
Okay.
or a problem that someone brought to me, that they were having. So I can't speak to that as an issue.
Right.
I can say for myself that I had incidents where I was approached, inappropriately throughout my career, and
Okay. And how did
that
you?
was.
I'm sorry, but how did I'm interested. How did you address those issues? I mean, was there a complaint process that you were able to follow?
There is a complaint process. We go back to how much is this worth what I will have to endure if I do bring that to light. And so you find ways to address that on your own without having to go through that system, because it's tough enough as it is to get to where you are, especially when you're climbing the ranks.
Right.
And once you get there, going through something like that, to have that stigma placed on your name, and to go through all that, and to trust that you'll get the support that you need. You have to weigh those options, and it's a shame that we have to go through that, but that's a true reality.
Right, and again, it's like I mentioned earlier in my conversation with Dr. Allen. We know what the culture and the traditions are, and we know that dealing with diversity issues are a struggle, and particularly in a military type setting. Did you feel any type of support? Did you feel that you were being supported by your higher ups at those times?
During those times, I can say that any support I needed, I received from my higher ups for issues that I had. If regarding what you just asked me, no, because I didn't bring it to their attention.
Okay.
But for anything else that I had issues with, particularly the gentleman that found it difficult for me to lead them early on in my career as an officer, I did take that to my higher ups, and did get some support there, where it's like, well, Harris is it, and so she's going to be your leader. You have to deal with it. Suck it up. Well, that makes the issue. And there were times where I had to get tough skin and go to them myself on my own, and figure out a way to get through to them and say, hey, well, I'm not going anywhere. So you either work with me or you don't. And if you don't want to, then I can take it up to higher leadership, and we can go that route.
Okay. All right. Now, let me ask you this. A similar question as I asked earlier. How do you feel that your experience, what impact do you feel your experiences, the knowledge that you gain, and all, how did that impact you as you transition from military to civilian life?
It has impacted me tremendously. The military teaches you how to overcome and adapt, if nothing else. You can adapt to any situation practically that you find yourself in, because you are taught in so many different scenarios in the military, and you have to act quickly.
Right.
And you have to think very quickly. And so, if nothing else, it prepared me to overcome and adapt to any situation that came my way. And it showed me how taught me how to lead, and to trust myself, trust my instinct, trust my ability to handle situations, and to think my way through them. Because again, in the military, you're putting in those positions very early on. You have to think very early on. And so I think it prepared me for those types of things.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind, if you could tell me a little bit about Vector Check. That's your, yeah,
Sure.
I'd like to hear about that.
Okay, I'm glad you asked. Couldn't wait to get to that.
All right.
Vector Check is a brainchild and something that I'm a spiritual person, so God has been dealing with me in a lot of ways since I retired, and one of those things for me was, what is my purpose? What is the thing that I am here to do? And so I find it quite natural. It comes to me where I find myself counseling or coaching or in discussions with people about life issues all the time. And so Vector Check is born out of me being in a place in life where I want to pour into people, because I do that anyway, and just do that on a regular basis. So Vector stands for Vector Exploration of Careers, Transitions, Opportunities, and Realities. And so we're exploring all those things. And when we talk about vector in the military, that vector means you're taking a look at where you are to validate your direction or your heading on a given, where you're heading on a given issue. And you also check with your leadership to ensure that you're on that assigned task. And so that is what Vector Check will be for me. I will be that person, that life coach, that transition coach for you, to help get you on your assigned task, or to ensure that you're heading in the right direction. You're on course for where it is that you want to go in life. And so that's what Vector Check LLC will be about.
Great. Okay. And I'm sure you'd be able to provide us with information to contact you. I'm sure that there are folks in the audience that would like to follow up and get more information on that. So
absolutely, I'll make sure I get you that.
Okay, great. And there's one other important hat that you're wearing. You are the manager of Fisher House at Joint Base Andrews. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I started managing the Fisher House on Andrews about 2.5 years ago. And the Fisher House is a home away from home for veterans that are traveling to a medical treatment facility. And there's a Fisher House within a 50-mile radius of them traveling from out of town. And so if they can't afford housing, they can't afford a hotel or base lodging, they can stay at a Fisher House for free, as long as they're receiving medical treatment and they're going to a treatment facility within the 50-mile radius of their home. They can stay at that medical facility. So you have to be traveling from out of town. So if you're living in the DMV, you wouldn't be able to stay at the Fisher House. But if you're coming from the Fisher House here, the one that I manage, but if you are coming, say, from Dover Air Force Base, or from where do we get people from Seymour Johnson, from out of town, and you can stay there for free. And we're just gonna love all over you. We're gonna just make it a very comfortable, loving place for you to take your mind off your medical conditions, and then you can focus on just being comfortable, being relaxed, and not worrying about how you're going to pay for that.
Now, is that also available to the families of the veterans that may be traveling with them?
Absolutely. So the families can travel with them. It's kind of like a Ronald McDonald House, but the military version of that. And so families can stay. They can have a medical attendant with them. The family can stay. There's no specific time limit because everyone's medical condition is different. And so you can stay for as long as you need, as long as you're getting medical treatment.
Okay, great. And again, if either yourself as well as Dr. Allen, if there's any links that you would like to share with the viewers, we certainly appreciate it, okay? So let's move on to the gentleman that is responsible for making the second best cup of coffee in the world that I've ever had. Dr. James Duller. Dr. Duller is a retired Major, U.S. Air Force. Dr. Duller is a Vietnam veteran. He was a intelligence officer at the Pentagon. He was director of administration for the Air Force District of Washington. He was also headquarters squadron commander for the Presidential Air Wing, that is Air Force One. And might I add, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Dula, that you were the first Black commander of that unit.
That's true.
Okay.
All right.
Dr. Dula also was a mission support commander in Panama, and he commanded and oversaw joint operations in Central and South America. Dr. Dula is a retired public school teacher and a former college professor. He's a former deputy chief administrative officer, for the Prince George's County Department of Health and Human Services. He served as the president and CEO of the Prince George's County Chamber of Commerce. And Dr. Dula currently serves as Veteran Affairs Officer for Prince George's County, Maryland. Is there anything that I missed, Dr. Dula?
Yes, Mr. Clay, I'm just a country boy from North Carolina.
Okay, great. I meant to add that, but I'm sorry. So anyway, I'd like to introduce Dr. Dula. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Dula, you have a wealth of military experience, just as Colonel Harris and Dr. Allen. I would like to, realizing the sensitivity of a lot of the positions that you held in the military, I'm going to forego that. But what I would like to do in your current role as the Veteran Affairs Officer of Prince George's County, I'd like for you to talk a lot about that, because I'm sure that while there are many veterans that know that your office exists, there are probably just that many more that don't know. So if you could give us a little bit of background on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, most certainly. And thank you very much, Mr. Clay, for putting this program together and for having our distinguished guest here. I know Colonel Harris quite well for the professional she is, and for many of the accomplishments she's had along the way. I know Dr. Allen through our community service, and that's right. And wearing some of the hats that she has worn. And I can say this, both the women veterans you have here tonight are certainly role models, not only for young ladies that's looking for someone to look up to, but for anyone, man or woman, that needs a role model that they can look up to in order to achieve certain things in life. So I want to tip my hat to both of you. Thank you very much for your comments. And I know that we still have work to do. I often tell people, Mr. Clay, that I came up on the rough side of the mountains. Just a little boy growing up in segregation, attended segregated schools. I learned how to deal with all aspects of America. And in the military, I just learned that the military was a microcosm for the rest of the United States. And so you go into it with your eyes open and you just keep pressing on. I agree with Lieutenant Colonel Harris, who said that you have to be able to think on your feet and make the transition from military to civilian life. I often think to myself, and I've heard other people say, that the biggest obstacle was being able to go into a new office, a new organization, a new company, and go with a stealth mentality. Because as you know, Mr. Clay, the military teaches us to be proactive, to always be looking for a better way to do things, to accomplish things, that new goal. And I found that to be a drawback in the civilian community, as other veterans have said, because we go in with a continuous improvement mentality. And sometimes along the way, you can ruffle some feathers. But that's just who we are. That's the kind of people we have been groomed to be. And in civilian life, it makes it a little difficult sometimes. But Health and Human Services was a great job that I had here in the county. I learned Prince George's County very well. And in my present role as the Veteran Affairs Officer for Prince George's County, when I was appointed in 2019 by County Executive Also Brooks, she said, would you please go in with the mindset that you're here to serve and assist our veteran community across the board, and don't leave out our seniors and our families. And so my charge from her was to serve and assist the veterans, their families, and to assist those seniors that needed our help. And
Right.
so we hit the ground running. And one of the first things we did was said we're going to work from a military concept because we're military people. And we created what we called Operation Jumpstart. Operation Jumpstart means that we hit the ground running. We called our nonprofits together, and I think Dr. Allen was in the room at that particular time. And we hit the ground running by talking to our nonprofits, by talking to our businesses, by talking to the hospitals, by talking to those that provided housing, and across the board came up with programs that would serve the needs of every veteran, regardless of what that need would be. And we created a mandate, and we moved forward. And that mandate was based on partnership. And for the first 6 months, I think between February and June, we served 4,000 customers who came in for everything from VA claims. And you saw many of them when you're over there drinking some of that good Air Force coffee. You saw many of them. And coming in and out of the door like hot and cold running water.
Right. Yeah.
And we served each one of them. From there, reaching our goals the first 6 months through collaboration, by working with Serving Together, by working with our community, by working with NAVVETS, National Association of Black Veterans, and the VFW and the Disabled Veterans and AMVETS. We spread the word that we're here, and we began to serve the needs of our people. And so we moved after the first 6 months into a new operation. You know, any operation that is in place too long can become stagnant. That's what the military taught us, right, Colonel Harris? You got to keep thinking ahead. You got to keep moving forward. And so we created, after 6 months, Operation Forward March, because we had reached our first 6 month goals. So Operation Forward March meant that now we were ready to create a structure. Now we were ready to look at programs and initiatives that was going to take us further down the road. So we created Operation Forward March, and under that was the caveat, the HELP program, HELP. And under the HELP program, it began with H, which is serving our homelessness, serving our homeless veterans. It began with taking a look at healthcare programs, and that's where being the DCAO for Health and Human Service previously came in. I was able to connect with the hospitals, be able to know what the clinics were providing, able to help them to know how to get Medicaid, Medicare, and the Affordable Care Act, so that everyone had an opportunity to benefit from the resources we have right here in Prince George's County. We were able to take people off the streets, help them off the streets, and get into to shelter. We were helping to get them into temporary housing with the help of Educare Resource Center, who put our veterans up and help them to transition from a temporary shelter to permanent housing. We just had a woman veteran who came into us last year, and she was down on her luck, needed employment. We helped her get that. She needed a place to stay, got a temporary shelter. She just moved in to a brand new home that she bought a year later because of the help that we provided to her. Now, many won't see this type of activity, but that's what we do. And we do it with partnerships. E stands for education and employment. If you're a veteran and you come to us and you need help, we'll send you over to Employ Prince George's, where they will welcome you with open arms. And as a veteran, you go to the front of the line to get services. And because our veterans have earned that right, and because they have defended our country from whether it was Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan or California, you know, they've earned that right. So we have employment and education. It stands for labor and training. Many come to us and they have certain certifications in the military, but they don't have them in civilian life. So if they need to update their certificates so that they can operate in their skill in civilian life, we have them do that. We partner with George's Community College, and we partner with Team Builders Academy to make sure that they hit the ground running when they transition from the military. P stands for partnerships, HELP. P stands for partnerships. And partnerships help us build a certain quality of life for the veterans that come to us. So that's the HELP program. The HOPE program, Help and Hope. HOPE is for suicide prevention. You know, veterans are committed suicide at a rate of 20 to 22 per day. That's over 6,000 a year. That's way too many. So we have created programs to help them get the services that they need to hopefully prevent them from committing suicide. And we also have the Surviving Spouse Program, which is many of the Vietnam veterans now, I hate to say it, but are passing away. Vietnam and Korean vets are in their 90s. And so the spouse come to us, the spouses come to us, we make sure that we help them navigate the VA system so that they can get the services that they need to be able to not only bury their loved ones, but look at what benefits are available to them after that. And
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, Dr. Dola. But one thing that is important that I want to ask you about. Okay, and again, please pardon me for interrupting you here.
Navy people do that, but go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about the veterans population, Prince George's County. My understanding is that Prince George's County has the largest population of veterans in the state of Maryland. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Sure we do. Yeah, we do have the largest number of veterans in the state of Maryland. And a large number of those are women veterans. And that's why we created the Women Veterans Initiative that both Dr. Allen and Colonel Harris both participate on. Because we understand that as being the fastest growing subcategory of veterans in the United States today, we need to pay more attention to the needs of our women veterans. We need to respect our women veterans a lot more. We need to make sure that the women veterans are acknowledged for the things that they have done in American history and in support of the Constitution of the United States. So as we look at being the largest number, we take honor in doing that, yeah. But we also take more honor in being able to address the needs of those that make up that number. And so we're working with the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine, Coast Guard, and we've added space branches when they began to come to us. And we've added the reserves as well as the National Guard to our ranks.
Very good. Okay, great. And I'm sure before this is over, we'll be able to share information with the audience as how to contact the Office of Veteran Affairs in Prince George's County. In the interest of time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring in my colleague, Investigator Charles Floyd. Again, we're with the Prince George's County Human Relations Commission, and we are the agency in Prince George's County that is responsible for conducting civil rights education and enforcement. We investigate discrimination. Of course, being Veterans Day, we focus on veterans, but then again, it's all protected classes. So, Investigator Floyd, if I can ask you to give maybe a brief background on the services that are provided by the Human Relations Commission.
Sure. Good evening to everyone. So the Human Relations Commission, as Langston was saying, we're the county civil and human rights education enforcement agency. We're responsible for trying to eradicate discrimination in all forms for all those who work, live, play, and visit within Prince George's County. We have 5 pillars that we like to say. There are 5 areas that we have expertise on, that we're working on, that we're trying to help grow. Our big one is investigation. Langston and myself are investigators. We've been doing it for several years now. We cover several areas such as employment, housing, law enforcement, education, public accommodation, and commercial real estate. I know a lot of talk tonight have been about veterans, and race and gender has come up, but there are several more protected areas that we look into, such as national origin, age, retaliation, occupation, marital status, political opinion, personal appearance, sexual orientation, disability, familial status. We've also just recently included source of income and housing, immigration status and housing, citizenship status and housing, and we also do ban the box in employment, which is their fair criminal standards thing. We look into the disparate treatment if you believe you've been treated differently because of protected basis, harassment if you believe you've been sexually harassed or harassed because of your race or any other protected basis. We look into accommodations. If you have a disability and you've been denied an accommodation, we look into all that as a neutral party. You can always contact us, and we also have a work sharing agreement with the EEOC, so it works for people who cannot make that trip out to Baltimore. We're located in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, so instead of going out to Baltimore to make a complaint, you can always come to our office if that's more convenient for you. The second thing that we have is our Human Trafficking Task Force. That the chair is our executive director, Renee Battlebooks, and we have a wonderful task force administrator who works on this. And for those who don't know, human trafficking is a modern day slavery and involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sexual act. The task force goal is to identify and recover victims of human trafficking, increase persecution of traffickers, and educate the public on human trafficking. Now, the Human Trafficking Task Force does have several committees that if people are interested in, they can definitely contact us and, see what they can bring to the table. We have labor trafficking, law enforcement, legislative, public outreach and training, and victim services. We also have another pillar, which is our language access. And that pillar is responsible for developing, implementing, and enforcing an equal language access protocol for all residents to access equally county agencies, programs, and benefits, meaning like brochures and flyers. They're not just, our goal is not just to have them in English, we want them in Spanish and any other language that residents of the county may need to use to understand what's going on. Another thing that we do, we work with the CARE Coalition, which is the Capital Area Immigrants Rights Coalition. And we have a partnership where we're helping them oversee initiatives to protect through legal representation county residents who may be in federal custody under the threat of deportation. And our last pillar that we have is public outreach and training, which is where we're trying to educate the public on what we do, and to include the discrimination. We do trainings, we come to events, we have our own events like tonight, where we're trying to spread the word about what we do and show that the Human Relations Commission is out there to help those who need.
Right. Okay. And just a couple of things I'd like to add. Again, tonight we are focusing on veterans. We talked about the protected classes. We just want to be clear that veteran status itself is not a protected class. However, the protected classes does apply. They do apply to veterans. We know that when it comes to areas such as disabilities, when we're talking about situations such as post-traumatic stress syndrome, things of that nature, even physical disabilities, that's what we handle, and those are some of the ways that we can really, really assist veterans. I have a question here for Dr. Dula. Is there a way that the local government can assist veterans in navigating federal benefits?
When you say federal benefits, are you talking about VA benefits?
Yes.
Yeah. One thing that VA will do is they will take a look at the requirements and the qualifications of everyone that puts in a veteran claim. And when they take a look at that, many times they will address them themselves. On other occasions, they will refer the veteran to people like me so that they can get the right assistance that they need through a veteran service officer, or a VSO as we call them. And they will help them navigate the system. They will help them get their medical records and help them do the paperwork to be able to put in the claim so that they can be reviewed by the VA.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask this question. I'm going to start with Dr. Allen. What advice or what type of counsel would you give to a young person or any person who's considering a military career or considering enlisting or seeking a commission into the military that's kind of on the fence? What type of advice would you give to them?
Well, first of all, hi, thank you. First of all, I would start out by saying it's the most wonderful accomplishment I have made in my life outside of giving birth to my son. Being in the military, I always tell people this when I was in the government, because they have a little bit of a prejudice with those 5 points or 10 points. So I would always have to, find myself, supporting that. And I would say, if I could send a mandate, it would be for everyone to go straight to the military for at least a year, first of all. And then you can do college or whatever you want after that, because I think that would increase the respect that the veterans deserve, because a lot of people don't understand what you do when you put your right hand up and swear into the military. But I would just say it's something that I would recommend to every single person coming out of high school, just to experience it, at least to, maybe go on a ride along with a few of the military, something, so you can experience that wonderful patriotic feeling.
Okay, great. Thank you. Colonel Harris, same question. Can you just give me a little, briefly, what do you think? What would you say?
I would say to them, well, you asked me earlier, and I didn't completely answer the question. I joined for stability, and I joined to travel, because I definitely wanted to get both from that. But for someone new, I would say if you're looking for stability and an opportunity to be challenged early in life, it's a great path to pursue. Go in with a plan and a strategy on what it will be for you. What is it that you want to do? Go in with that strategy. Understand that you have something to offer, because we all matter. We all have unique capabilities and that we can offer to this world and to the military. So don't ever let anybody convince you that you don't. So take those unique capabilities, go in with a plan and a strategy, and follow it. Also be prepared for detours and for change, because change is inevitable. And it is inevitable. Your plan may get shifted left or right, because when you're serving in the military, it's a selfless job. It's service before self. And so you will be able to overcome, you will be able to adapt, but I would definitely encourage someone to go in. I do that now. I have a young lady now that I'm mentoring that's going through basic training as we speak. So definitely go in and use that as a great opportunity for education, also for an opportunity to meet different cultures of people. If nothing else, you will get the diversity that life offers through the military, because you're going to meet all kinds of people from every walk of life, and you have an opportunity to travel to different places you probably never would have without joining. And a great opportunity. Best, like Dr. Allen, best decision I ever made, best opportunity in my life.
Okay.
And I wouldn't trade it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Dula, give you a real brief, and then I have a closing comment. Would you pretty much just second that?
I will definitely second what the ladies have said, but I would also say aim high to be all you can be, so you too can see the world.
There you go.
Never forget why you went in the first place. As they said, be able to adapt to overcome, and remember that life has consequences. So always do the right thing, so that you don't blemish any record, and you keep moving forward.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I can say this real quick, that I went into the military because I remember the talks that I had with my father. He was a combat veteran in World War II. He fought in the South Pacific. And when he came back home to the country that he defended, he could not buy a house, or he could not, sit at lunch counters at certain places. But he did put his life on the line for the country. So instead of having a mad face about it, I decided that I would go in and I would try to make things better. So I would like to thank all of you for participating today. I would like to thank those in the audience who stopped in to see us today. We really appreciate it. And If there's anyone that needs to contact us, the information will be available. It will be sent out by chats and links. Thank you very much, and everyone have a great day. Tomorrow's Veterans Day. Be at peace with yourself and be at peace with some veterans. Thank you.
Thank you.